Good afternoon. This meeting, including the audio and video of remote participants, is being streamed live on YouTube. You will find links to viewing options for all Senate meetings on the live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website. This Zoom meeting and YouTube live stream event will include the following agenda. The Tuesday, March 15th, 1 p.m. agenda of the Committee on Housing. In the unlikely event that we have to abruptly end this hearing due to major technical difficulties, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business at 1:30 p.m. on Thursday, March 17th, here in room 225, and a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. For those participating remotely, all testifier audio will be muted and video disabled until shortly before it is your turn to testify. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to welcome our Vice Chair, Senator Kanuha, and Committee Member, Senator Carl Rhodes. Our first measure today is House Bill 1748 HD1, authorizing the issuance of GO bonds for affordable housing. It authorizes and appropriates funds for the issuance of GO bonds into and out of the Rental Housing Revolving Fund for low-income rental housing projects or units that are allocated low-income housing tax credits and developed for families and individuals who meet certain eligibility requirements. Our first testifier for this measure is HHFDC in support.
Good afternoon. Chris Woodard on behalf of HHFDC. We stand on our written testimony, which on this bill, which would infuse funds into the Rental Housing Revolving Fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next testifier is Catholic Charities Hawaii in support. Okay, if they're not here, we'll move on to Partners in Care in support. Looks like you're on mute. There you go.
I can't hear.
Catholic Charities. Okay, Partners in Care and support. And finally, we have written only testimony from Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 1748? Betty Lou, you can start testifying if you can hear us. Okay. All right, members, do you have any questions for the testifiers on this measure? Okay, actually, I do have one question for HHFDC. Okay, for HHFDC, the question is how much money would be needed to be put into this bill?
Based on my discussions with our finance branch staff, I think we could reasonably deploy $250 to $300 million per year. But you know that it varies year to year depending on the applications that we receive for funding.
So 250 to 300 million, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions, members? Okay, if not, thank you. We'll move to our next bill, House Bill 1752, relating to housing. It establishes the Housing Choice Voucher Landlord Incentive Program, requires HPHA to adopt rules without regard to Chapter 91 HRS to establish specified incentives for landlords who participate in the tenant-based assistance Housing Choice Voucher Program under Section 8 of the U.S. Housing Act of 1937. It requires that the Hawaii Public Housing Authority adopt rules to establish a maximum of 15 days after receipt of an owner's or landlord's inspection request as a reasonable time within which to inspect a dwelling unit for lease under the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, and it appropriates funds. Our first testifier is Hawaii Public Housing Authority with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We stand on our testimony offering comments. And while we support the incentive programs, we strongly believe that such incentives should be balanced with additional language that would address the rental discrimination that's impacting the most vulnerable of our state. The original measure included such language, and we request that it gets reinserted. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Our next testifier is the State Council on Developmental Disabilities and Support, followed by Department of Budget and Finance with comments. And then we have Partners in Care with comments. We have Partners in Care with comments. Followed by Catholic Charities Hawaii with comments. Okay, and then with written testimony, we have Faith Action Housing Now in support, Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center in support, ACLU of Hawaii with comments, League of Women Voters Hawaii in support, the Chamber of Sustainable Comments in support. Oh, yes, please. Chamber of Sustainable Commerce.
Good afternoon, Chair Chang, Vice Chair Kanuha, members of the committee. My name is Kim Koko Iwamoto. I'm here representing the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce, the Hawaii Legislative Council. We are here to testify in support with amendments. As was mentioned by a previous testifier, there was earlier language that looked, I think, a little bit more similar to Senator Rhodes' his other freestanding anti-economic discrimination bill regarding no Section 8 vouchers. We do ask that you put secure language that does address that injustice. I am also a landlord, and I do take Section 8. I've heard the pleas personally from individuals who wait months or years just to get the voucher, and then they have 90 days to secure a landlord willing to take it. And they complain about not having that, they're going to lose their voucher if there aren't enough landlords. And frankly, there's too much widespread discrimination going on, which does concern me. As you also know, I was on the Civil Rights Commission. To me, there is a really, there's a strong correlation between having that kind of rhetoric on your advertising that says no Section 8 and a propensity to discriminate on the basis of mostly women with children, and people with disabilities. So to me, there should be a huge red flag to the Civil Rights Commission or any agency who is charged with investigating this kind of widespread discrimination. So I would love it if we put landlords on notice that they will be flagged for discrimination, that maybe ghost tenant applicants will be sent in to apply for housing. That could be really effective. I also want to speak about the 2-week time frame to get apartments inspected and approved. I think what we saw, and I'm not sure during the pandemic if this was happening, but it totally could happen. As a landlord, I could actually have the agency charged with inspecting my unit for Section 8 appropriateness. If they called me on FaceTime, for instance, and I show them the unit and I walk them through my unit, I test all the smoke detectors, I show them that all the appliances are working, I turn on all the faucets for them. There could be a much quicker way of getting us through inspection. Also, as a landlord who is already renting to other units to other Section 8 people, I feel like there should be a different status for those of us who already are pre-existing vendors. Like, we've already know the rules help us rent units faster to people to get them housed quicker. Because I think right now the bill currently says 2 weeks. I think they could do it in a week, and that would help landlords feel like, okay, we can be a part of this. Because truthfully, when I rent units within 24 hours if I were to rent in the general market and not Section 8, I can get it rented sometimes in a day because people will come with deposit checks, etc. So that's the competition, right? So we want to make sure that Section 8 people who have Section 8 vouchers are competitive in that way and are backed. If there's any questions you have of a landlord, if somebody accepts Section 8, from a business perspective, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Family Promise of Hawaii with comments. Ko'olau Koko Hawaiian Civic Club in support. Hawaii Realtors with support.
Can I just stand at my support? Like the wasn't provided support.
You'll need to stand talking to the mic.
Stand on my written testimony, but just to emphasize that we support the language in the bill that provides incentives for the housing provider, and we like the bill as is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have individuals Arjuna, Lindsay Ann Pacheco, and David Dedges in support. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1752? Okay, members, any questions?
Sure, I had a question.
Senator Rhodes.
Was Mr. Wansafi on this one? HPHA?
Senator.
Oh, there you go. Okay. I just had a question because according to this, it would require you to adopt rules, give you the authority to adopt rules without regard to Chapter 91. Is there some specific reason that Chapter 91? Why do you not? Why shouldn't it be? Why shouldn't Chapter 91 apply?
I think it's to the pleasure of legislature. If they want an immediate implementation, then we save time. If we implement Chapter 91, then it will take longer. But either way, it's fine with us.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And while we have you, Director, I'm sure you were listening to the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce's testimony on how it would be easier for landlords to participate in this program.
Yes, and I think we agree wholeheartedly, and we start in implementation of a lot of electronic means. There are certain prohibitions on certain items that cannot be inspected via such means. The inspector has to physically be there and check them, specifically the health and safety. However, as you are aware, we applied for and got an MTW designation. It was only one spot left in the nation, and we got it. So we are able in the next few months or so to implement a lot of additional flexibilities that will allow us to do exactly that. I also want to bring to the board that over 96% of the inspections do now take place in about 10 days or less.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, members? Okay, if not, we'll move to our next measure, which is House Bill 1753 relating to the Rental Housing Revolving Fund. It allows HHFDC greater flexibility to use the funds in the Rental Housing Revolving Fund for necessary expenses in administering the corporation's housing finance programs. Our first testifier is HHFDC in support.
Good afternoon, Chris Woodard on behalf of HHFDC. We do stand on our testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Department of Budget and Finance with comments, followed by Galen Fox in opposition. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1753? Members, do we have any questions on House Bill 1753? I actually have a question for HHFDC.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. As you'll recall, this committee heard the Senate companion to this bill, Senate Bill 2149. and had questions on why the rental housing revolving fund would be used to pay for home ownership programs. Do you have an answer to that question?
Yeah, so the answer, Senator, is that, well, the rationale is that the rental housing revolving fund is funded in part by conveyance tax collections, which are in part derived from single family and condominium home sales. And so that's the rationale for asking for the flexibility to use the rental housing revolving fund to pay for administrative expenses for these other programs in the housing finance branch, specifically the single family programs.
Okay. Well, that's a novel use of the fund that's being proposed here. If you saw the Department of Budget and Finance's testimony, they mentioned that HHFDC recently completed some admin rules changes that address the sustainability of the programs that are being sought to be funded under this bill. Can you comment on that testimony?
I can. Yeah, you're correct, Chair, that through the passage of revised administrative rules, we have been able to increase generally fees that are associated with our various finance activities. I don't know that that covers our costs for the single family programs, but yes, you are correct.
Okay, thank you. Members, any further questions? Okay. If not, we can move to our next bill, which is House Bill 1859, relating to housing. It appropriates funds to the Hawaii Public Housing Authority for the State Rent Supplement Program. Okay. Our first testifier is the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. Its support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We stand on our testimony in support, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next testifier is Department of Budget and Finance with comments, followed by Partners in Care and support. And next, Catholic Charities Hawaii in support.
Aloha. I'm sorry, I was having technical difficulties on the former bills. Catholic Charities stands in strong support of this bill. I did want to provide some testimony on House Bill 1752, but was having technical difficulties. I'm not sure if it's possible to speak about that bill also at this time.
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay, so 1752, we support the landlord incentives in this bill. We think it's very needed to look at what's preventing landlords from accepting Section 8. And there are some problems that we think this bill will really help with the landlord incentives. However, we really also want to urge you to add a strong prohibition against discrimination by source of income. We feel there needs to be a balanced playing field between, addressing the landlord's concerns, but also giving an opportunity for people with housing vouchers and rental assistance to at least speak to a landlord, and not what the problem now is. Very often landlords automatically screen out people. So you don't even have a chance to, like any applicant, to speak with them or to put in an application. So we feel by allowing people to at least, have that chance to speak to a landlord is very important. There is a part of this bill on the original bill which did address this. There was a one sentence thing in the original 1752 that said, nothing in this section shall be deemed to require any person or landlord to participate, which we agree with, provided that the denial of a potential tenant shall not be based on the potential tenant's source of income. So in the original bill, there was something. We asked you to put in more language, for example, from Senate Bill 2399 or Senate Bill 206, which has passed over, but we don't know, what's going to happen in the House. We feel that especially mom and pop landlords need a little bit more description of what is discrimination. For example, you cannot steer people away. Often they use minimum incomes, and some would think that, well, your income is too low, you don't have the rent. Although with Section 8, of course, you only pay 30% of your income. So that minimum income should not apply in those cases because they would meet it with the subsidy. So we sincerely ask you to add to this bill so that we can have something moving forward and hopefully into conference so that there can be further discussion of prohibition against discrimination. Thank you so much for hearing me a little bit late.
Thank you. Okay, and finally, we have Nikos Leveren's Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1859? Okay, members, any questions or discussion? If not, we'll move to our next measure, which is House Bill 1917 HD1 relating to affordable housing. It indefinitely extends the deadline for the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation to renegotiate an existing or issue a new ground lease for the Front Street Apartments affordable housing project before the corporation's requirement to initiate condemnation proceedings is triggered. Our first testifier on this measure is HHFDC in support.
Good afternoon, Chris Woodard on behalf of HHFDC. We stand on our written testimony in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next testifier is Maui County Council Chair Alice Lee in support. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1917? Okay, members, do you have any questions? If not, I have one question for HHFDC. So for the Senate companion of this bill, we did a 5-year deadline extension instead of the infinite deadline extension that's being requested here. Would 5 years be sufficient for your department to conclude these negotiations?
Yeah, so, Chair, we would prefer not to have any deadline at all. I think to impose a deadline unduly gives the lessee leverage in negotiations, but that said, we could live with a 5-year deadline.
Thank you. Members, any further questions? Okay, if not, we'll move forward again. Our next bill is House Bill 2020 HD1 relating to housing. It appropriates general funds for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 for deposit into the Affordable Home Ownership Revolving Fund. Our first testifier for House Bill 2020 is the Department of the Attorney General with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Chang, members of the committee, Sandra Ching, Deputy Attorney General. We want to point out that the bill does not provide for a further appropriation out of the revolving fund. And in our written testimony, we have provided sample draft language for which, if you wish to amend the bill, to provide such. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Our next testifier is Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation in support.
Good afternoon, Chris Woodard on behalf of HHFDC. Would you support this bill? Stand on our written testimony, and I'd like to echo the comments of Deputy Attorney General Ching. There appears to be a technical amendment required regarding the appropriation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Department of Budget and Finance with comments, followed by Hawaii Habitat for Humanity Association in support.
Good afternoon. I'm Jean Lilly with Hawaii Habitat for Humanity. I'm an affiliate. We are an affiliate support organization and a community development financial institution with a loan fund accessible across the state for development and construction of affordable for sale housing. We strongly support HB 2020 and ask the legislature to consider a $5 million investment into the fund. We believe this investment can leverage $40 to $45 million in development and construction of affordable for sale housing, specifically for Hawaii residents earning 80% area median income and below. Habitat for Humanity and all the Habitat organizations and supporters in Hawaii know that home ownership is important. People who own their homes find it as a pathway out of poverty. By building generational wealth, it allows our residents to not just survive, but thrive. Data highlights that home ownership contributes to better health, safety, and long-term family stability. Home ownership also provides opportunities to build equity, leverage education investments, and encourages community and civic participation. We stand on our written testimony as well, and I will be available for questions.
Thank you. And our final testifiers are Benjamin Duke and John Kawamoto in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 2020? If not, members, do you have any questions or comments? If not, we'll move forward again. Our next bill is House Bill 2239 relating to condominiums. It increases the minimum number of residential units in a condo project that must be offered for sale to prospective owner occupants in the 30-day period following the initial date of sale of the condominium from 50% to 90%. Okay, our first testifier for HB 2239 is NIOP in opposition.
Aloha Chair Chang, Vice Chair Kanuha, members of the committee, Evan Oe on behalf of NAB Hawaii in opposition to the bill. Our primary concern with the increased percentage is the negative impact that it will have on sales for new projects. Potential buyers often have a tough time committing to owner-occupant residence for 2 to 3+ years due to their changing circumstances. Owner-occupant affidavits require a buyer to commit to a living situation many years in advance, which is a major obstacle and commitment even if a buyer has the best intentions to live there. The current 50% owner-occupant requirement has proven to be aligned with historical residential demand. Rarely does the immediate demand exceed the current 50% offering based on the composition of the market and legal obligation for a purchaser to occupy the unit after closing. Typically, there is not enough owner-occupant demand to justify the 90% requirement in all condominium projects. It is likely that a developer will lose the ability to create the essential sales momentum that is necessary for a project to be built. This is because the pool of qualified buyers who will actually apply to purchase a unit as a pre-sale years before it is actually delivered is not as robust as assumed to be. Although the delay is only 30 days, the early stages of product launch are critical to sales momentum. If sales slow during this period, it could result in further delays or even cancellation of the project, resulting in lower stock of new homes. For these reasons, we respectfully urge you to defer HB 2239. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. We'll be available for any questions.
Thank you. Our next testifiers are John Kawamoto and Galen Fox in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 2239? Any members, any questions or comments?
I have a question for NIAC.
NIOP, Senator Rhodes.
I find it really hard to believe that if there's not any demand for that particular product. I would have thought you could have sold out towers and towers and towers of owner-occupied units.
Well, thank you for the question, Senator. So what we've been finding is that owners or potential owner occupants are very hesitant because it's a commitment multiple years in advance, which could mean, you know, a family of two, say a husband and a wife, could purchase a one-bedroom unit, and then their changing circumstances, including, you know, birth of kids, could make the one unit no longer feasible. So it creates an obstacle and hesitancy to purchase into these units because, you know, often it's a pre-sale about maybe 2 to 3 years in advance before it's fully constructed. Sure. And then it's an additional required amount of years per the
if I'm wrong, then you just have to wait 30 days, right?
Yes, that's correct. So but the 30 days, you know, if there's no sales momentum during that time, it often or it could delay a project and maybe even lead to the cancellation because it doesn't represent enough, you know, momentum for the project itself.
Let's take it a step further then. So if you cancel a project that's just going to be sold to non-owners, then do we really need that project anyway?
Well, we feel as though that, you know, we're perfectly okay with the 50% offering, and you know that provides a good balance based on what we found. Yeah, and you know that does allow for owner occupants to come in, and that's the general demand that we've been seeing that, you know, essentially operates as the initial momentum for these projects and then continues on.
Okay, all right, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Our final measure on today's agenda is House Bill 2513 HD2 relating to the Rental Housing Revolving Fund. It deposits funds into the rental housing revolving fund to be used to provide loans or grants to mixed income rental projects or units for persons and families with incomes between 61 and 100% of the median family income. Enables HHFDC to use any unused monies for other authorized rental housing projects. Our first testifier for House Bill 2513 is HHFDC in support.
Chris Woodard on behalf of HHFDC. We stand on our written testimony supporting this bill, which would appropriate funds to target mixed income rental housing projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Department of Budget and Finance with comments, followed by Catholic Charities with comments.
Oh, aloha. Zoom.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, thank you. This is Betty Lou Larson, representing Catholic Charities Hawaii. While we do strongly support $150 million to the Rental Housing Revolving Fund, we feel that this funding should really target those in more need, which is workforce housing up to 80% AMI, instead of specifying it's for the 61 to 100% AMI. And how would you do that? Well, by working with HHFDC to implement new federal rules which allow income averaging, these projects, the low-income housing tax credit projects, could focus on families up to 80% AMI. And we feel this is really where the need is. It's a better alternative than just creating units for 61 to 100% AMI. We feel that the diversity that would be created by mixing this workforce into the low-income housing tax credit projects would really be beneficial. It would not only benefit families who are struggling at the up to 80% AMI, but it would benefit people on the low end because there would be more units for the low end to balance those at the higher end, which are coming in. So it's kind of a win-win solution, we feel, for families who on both ends need housing so critically. The other advantage that we want to talk about a little bit of this alternative is it would produce stable housing for elders in the 61 to 80% AMI. And it's not so much the rent for some elders in this population, but the stability. I had a friend, for example, professor at the university, 3 times lost his housing due to the unit being sold. So seniors really are looking for this type of building, which would have stable rents and stability as far as being able to live there. The other advantage to opening up these projects to elders in this population is that these buildings often provide aging in place services, and they're available to many people. So they again would have services in these buildings as well as a stable rent. So we feel this would be a real win-win solution for the growing need for elders for affordable rentals. Thank you very much for listening to our concerns about this bill.
Thank you very much. We next have individuals John Kawamoto and Benjamin Duke in support, followed by Highridge Costa in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 2513? Okay, seeing none, members, do you have any questions or comments? Okay, I have a question for HHFDC, or a couple of questions.
Yes.
Okay, so as you know, Senate Bill 3048 transfers $45 million out of the Rental Housing Revolving Fund and into DERF because those funds cannot be used for LIHTC projects. And so now you're supporting this bill to put new money into the Rental Housing Revolving Fund that also cannot be used for LIHTC projects. Can you explain the discrepancy?
So the funding, the appropriation that would be made under this bill, yeah, it would target a different income level. So let me take a step back. The other bill that you mentioned, the $45 million requested transfer from rental housing revolving fund to the dwelling unit revolving fund. That's a bill that I believe was introduced in prior years. And it's basically a simple solution to allow that capital to be deployed. And we do have needs for those funds, specifically in Waihole Valley, where we have a potable water system that needs replacement, and in the villages of Kapolei, where, among other things, we have roads that need resurfacing, and we also own other infrastructure improvements out there. So I guess I would say, there's a need for both, is the short answer.
Why doesn't HHFDC just ask for an appropriation to pay for those two items that you mentioned?
We certainly could. Again, my understanding is that a similar bill was introduced last year, and it frankly is just a simple way of solving the problem of having those tax exempt bond proceeds sitting in the rental housing revolving fund.
Okay, so the 45 million addressed in SB 3048 is not eligible to fund LIHTC projects. Can you use it for non-LIHTC projects?
Yes, you can.
Would any statutory changes be required to make that happen?
I don't believe so. The issue, Chair, is that it's a more nuanced answer than I don't think so.
Chris, I think it's a little hard to hear you. If you could
sorry.
speak close. Thank you.
Is that better? Okay. So the reality is that under the existing statute, the Rental Housing Revolving Fund, we're required to give priority in awarding those funds to tax credit projects. So because funding is limited year to year, essentially the LIHTC projects gobble up all of that rental housing revolving fund monies.
But what about the funds that are not eligible for use with LIHTC projects? Are you allowed to use those for non-LIHTC projects?
To the extent that there is not sufficient demand from LIHTC projects, I believe so. I don't know the technicalities of that, but the basic problem is we burn through all that rental housing revolving fund with LIHTC projects.
Referring to the 45 million in SB 3048 that is not eligible for use with LIHTC projects. Is there anything preventing you from using the 45 million for non-LIHTC projects today?
Again, we're required to give priority to LIHTC projects.
So am I hearing that you think we would need legislative action to change that prioritization so that funds not eligible for LIHTC could be applied to non-LIHTC projects?
Yeah, that would be my understanding.
As you heard earlier, Catholic Charities is stating that LIHTC funds can now be used for projects up to 80% of AMI under new federal rules. Would that take care of the concerns that the bill raises with families who are making a little bit more than 60% of AMI?
So yeah, so the rules do currently allow for income averaging up to 80% AMI. We have not implemented it in the state of Hawaii under our qualified allocation plan, which is required by IRS rules. I'm not actually aware of too many states on the mainland that use income averaging either. It's a rather new tool that's available, but certainly we can explore that when we revise our QAP next.
All right, that brings us to the end of our agenda today. We'll be recessing and we will come back for decision making. Okay, welcome back to the 1 p.m. hearing of the Committee on Housing. We're back from recess and we're going to do some decision making. Our first bill today is House Bill 1748. And for HB 1748, the chair's recommendation will be to pass with amendments. The amendments will be to incorporate the amount suggested by HHFDC of $300 million. And that's it. So again, for HB 1748 HD1, chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye on HB 1741, pass with amendments. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Moriwaki is excused. Senator Rhodes.
Aye.
Senator Favela. Aye. Chair, you have 4 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Our next bill is House Bill 1752 relating to housing. For this measure, we heard a lot of testimony asking for the inclusion of prohibitions of discrimination on the basis of income source. And so we'll be deferring decision-making on this measure until Thursday, March 17th at 1:30 p.m. in room 225. Okay, and then our next measure is House Bill 1753 relating to the Rental Housing Revolving Fund. So we heard the Senate companion to this bill, SB 2149, and at the time we deferred that measure because this committee is unclear as to why the rental housing fund is being used to pay for home ownership programs. We further note that BNF has testified and HHFDC has acknowledged rules changes that enable these programs to be more financially self-sufficient, which we feel that would address the concerns that the department, that HHFDC has. So for House Bill 1753, we'll be deferring this bill. Any questions, members? Okay, next bill, House Bill 1859 relating to housing. Okay, so the chair's recommendation will be to pass this measure with amendments, and we'll be taking the HPHA amendments to appropriate 1.5 million and also to add 1 public housing specialist to position. Any questions or discussion? Okay, if not, so for HB 1859 HD1, chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye.
HB 1859 HD1. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. So the 4 members present, any with reservations, any in opposition with Senator Moriwaki excused. Chair, you have 4 ayes. Recommendations adopted.
Thank you very much. Next, House Bill 1917 HD1 relating to affordable housing. The chair's recommendation. So we heard also the Senate companion of this bill, and instead of an indefinite extension, we had a 5-year deadline extension. Chair feels that 5 years is plenty of time, but it also ensures for some accountability to the agency in not indefinitely dragging this conversation on forever. So the chair's recommendation will be to pass this measure with amendments to have a 5-year deadline extension instead of an indefinite deadline extension. So for HB 1917, chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments.
HB 1917 HD1, chair's recommendation is passed with amendments, noting Senator Moriwaki as excused. Of the 4 members present, any with reservations, any in opposition. Chair, you have 4 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next, HB 2020 relating to housing. This chair's recommendation will be to pass with amendments, starting with the Attorney General's amendment to insert at the bottom of Section 2, there's appropriated out of the Affordable Home Ownership Revolving Fund the sum of blank or so much thereof as may be necessary for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 for the purposes of this act. We'll also take the Department of Budget and Finance's recommendation to insert language to repeal and lapse the $1 million appropriated via Act 227 Session Laws 2021. And finally, Hawaii Habitat for Humanity Association's amendment to appropriate $5 million into this fund. Okay, any discussion, members? Okay, so for HB 2020, chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Chair's recommendation on HB 2020 HD1 is to pass with amendments, noting Senator Moriwaki as excused, 4 members present. Any with reservations? Any in opposition? Chair, you have 4 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. For House Bill 2239, HD1 relating to condominiums, the chair's recommendation will be to pass this measure unamended. Members, any questions or comments? Okay. So for HB 2239, HD1, chair's recommendation is to pass unamended. Chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye on HB 2239 to pass unamended, noting Senator Moriwaki as excused of the other 3 members. Any with reservations? Any in opposition? Chair, 4 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. And so our last measure today, House Bill 2513 HD2. So, the chair notes that Senate Bill 3048 transferred $45 million out of the rental housing revolving fund into DERF because that money could not be used for LIHTC. And now this bill would transfer or would appropriate money into the rental housing revolving fund for non-LIHTC projects. Based on HHFDC's testimony, we're hearing that $45 million needs a statute change or needs legislative action to be eligible for non-LIHTC projects. And so we are going to be working on an SD1 to address that issue, to make the $45 million in SB 3048 eligible for non-LIHTC projects. And also we want to take a little bit more time to confer on this issue of changing the income limit to 80% of AMI now that federal rules permit LIHTC to be used for 80% AMI families with income averaging. So for this measure, we'll be deferring decision-making until Thursday, March 17th at 1:30 p.m. in room 225. Okay, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Any other questions or comments? There being no further business, this hearing is adjourned.